All right, my name's Sean Price. I'm the founder and CEO of Velez Managed Services, and we are an IT services company delivering third-party maintenance, break fix, and professional services all around the globe.
Thank you. Okay, so what brought you into the IT sector? Where's your journey led you up to until now?
I started many years ago. I started out as a software programmer, as a developer, as a child. I learned to program computers from a very young age. I had my first computer when I was 4 years old, and
Oh,
I started programming probably when I was 7 or 8 years old.
so
Um,
clever kid, basically.
uh, I'm not sure, but I certainly gave it a good try. And as sort of time developed and I got to an understanding of systems and understanding how things work, and more importantly, how things broke, and I could put them back together, I got interested in computer security. I got into hacking and cracking into systems. And that was really my sort of entry into IT. And then I founded a software company, which I ran for 10 years as well. So IT's been in my blood from day dot. And whether it's hardware, software, or just the running of IT companies, it's always been something that's been with me.
What made you start your first software company? What was the first idea? What made you think, you know what, this is what I want to do? Because you were quite young, weren't you? Didn't you say to me you were 18 or something?
Yeah, I was 18 when I first started my software business. Wasn't my first business, but it was my first software business. And I knew software inside out. I knew security, and I knew that inherently most pieces of software out there were insecure. So having a background in security and being able to write the code meant that I could bring the two things together. And back then we were working with law firms and pharmaceutical companies. So writing inherently secure software for them was a no-brainer.
And what led you to Velez? Because obviously that was before now. So
So that
where
was
did you meet Trev and Dan as well?
yeah. So the software company was a 10-year journey, and it was fantastic. I loved every minute of it, and I ended up taking some time out to enter an early mini retirement for a year or so, and just catch my breath again and sleep.
What was that like after working for so long?
I think I deserved it.
Yes,
I,
definitely.
I'd worked exceptionally hard over a long period of time, and I was ultimately tired, and I needed to rest. And having some time off, and my son was born in that period as well, so I got to be a very active father, which is great.
Mm.
Then deciding to get back into the IT services world, and met Dan and Trev through an organization at the time, and really just figured, well, here are two really smart guys, and what can we do together as an idea. And I came up with the idea for Velez and the services that we offered, and said, hey guys, let's go on this journey together.
Did you want to make Velez different to everyone else? What is Velez about? What made it, something you want to start, or especially with Dan and Trev, what was so special about them that you thought this is what I want to do? Obviously, you wanted to get back into the IT sector as well, so
um, I think there's a lot of companies out there that just carry on as if it's still 1980 something,
yeah.
uh, particularly in IT, because once something works, a lot of people don't tend to innovate and don't tend to try or be risk taking. They just try and continue as is every day. And I looked around and saw a lot of businesses that were all doing the same thing, all doing it the same way. In fact, there were multiple companies that I looked at who were using the exact same templated documentation that they'd stolen from one another over the years, and you couldn't tell who was who. The only difference was potentially the pricing of the service offering. But there was a lot of copycatting out there, and my background in software, I said, look, if we're going to do this, we'll do it properly, and we'll do things that are secure. We'll do things that are process driven, software driven, and we'll make sure that actually if the customer's buying from us, they understand that we are different for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, Trevor had got 20 plus years of operational experience in this industry. Dan had got, a decade of sales experience in this industry. I said, guys, you've done this a certain way for so long, but if we're going to do it, we need to revolutionize how we do it. And it's no point being a copycat of everybody else. And so looking at where everybody else's weaknesses were, we were able to capitalize on that and go, hey, well, the business model is fairly straightforward, but how do we deliver great service? Well, we change these things over here. And how do we make sure that our pricing and our sales process and sales organization is better? Well, we change these things here. And really don't rest on our laurels, and we innovate, and we always search for rapid improvement. And it's that constant iteration, because if you, as the old saying goes, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And that's what a lot of businesses in our industry have just stayed the same for 20, 30 years. Haven't innovated, haven't changed, tried lots of things, but have done it out of necessity rather than thinking about it. And so we plan, we process, we identify areas that need improvement, and then we apply software and people to those problems. And when you apply great people and intelligent software to problems, you tend to get some good fixes and some good solutions.
It's that experience that you guys have as well that obviously allowed you to see what was not wrong with other companies, but maybe what you wanted to change and make different in Velez, because Velez is quite a modern company. So as CEO, how do you make that happen? How do you make it seem different to everyone else?
The problem with a lot of companies, especially at a size that we are, is that the person at the top of the company thinks they're the smartest person in the room. And that's fine, except you're not. And if you think you're the smartest person in the room, then you've probably hired some very bad people. So the reality of it is, the job of a CEO is to hire great people, is to set out the vision and the mission of the company and get that into people's minds, and then to get out of the way of those people, give them all the resources and the tools they need to do a great job. And so when I look at a lot of businesses and you see the CEO sat in his glass office and is unapproachable, doesn't listen, thinks that what they did 30 years ago is still relevant today, and we'll just do that because that's what we did 30 years ago. You've got to listen to everybody in the organization. And I spend a lot of time talking to everyone in the company. I spend a lot of time listening to employee feedback and customer feedback and supply chain feedback, and making sure that if Billy says there's a problem on X, Y, and Z, well, I listen to that and understand, is it a problem or is it not a problem? Can we improve it? Can we not improve it? And it doesn't have to be my idea.
Yeah. Well, you said it's definitely about the people you employ and your whole entire team, it's everyone together. What do you look for when you're employing people? What are the qualities you want for Velez?
I think drive and motivation is probably one of the biggest factors, right? Experience is great. Education is great, and we certainly look for those factors. But if you're motivated and you're driven and you have a great sense of, I want to help and I want to fix and I think I can be of value, then that means so much more than I got a degree from X, Y, and Z university. Okay. As much as I think universities provide immense value, and they do, a lot of the time, the value in university is the people that you meet and the people you're surrounded with. Otherwise, my personal opinion is that universities are largely proof that you can sit still for 3 years and complete a project, and that project just happens to be called a degree. So it's a 3-year project, and I think if you are ambitious and you've got a real drive and hunger in you, sitting still to complete a project for 3 years that you have no input into is quite demotivating.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people aren't really into that. You know, some people like to just go straight into work rather than education. So it's nice that you give everyone that equal chance because everyone's different and learns differently as well. I know me for one, I like learning as I go along. So it's nice that you give everyone the same opportunity.
Well, I can say you spend 3 years working, here or anywhere for that fact. You spend 3 years working for a good company. What you will learn is, 10 or 100 times X what you will learn from a textbook in a university setting. And by the way, you can still read those textbooks without going to university and paying £30,000 fees. Okay.
Definitely. Good point.
So the point is, and I read an awful lot. I'm a constant, ferocious reader. But the fact is, experience and time in place is a lot more valuable. So going back to the original question of what we look for, hungry, smart, and people that are looking to grow. And that's a huge, huge factor in what I look for in people.
Another question I'd like to ask actually is, has that changed over recent times with the pandemic and everything? A lot of people have stopped employing. It's really hard for people to get jobs, but Velez, that doesn't seem to be a problem. You've actually increased the amount of people you've employed. So have you looked for different sorts of people in the pandemic? Because obviously it slowed quite a lot of people down, made people feel demotivated, and obviously with predicted grades and stuff, education might not be as much of a factor. So has that changed your opinion on how to hire people or not?
It has to. I don't think there's any conversation around that really. I think that whether we like it or not, remote working has finally become something that has been pushed into the hands of many employers. Because honestly, most employers never really liked the term remote working or giving people the ability to work remotely, because in their minds, and it is the mindset of a lot of employers, is that if I can't see you, how do I know if you're working or not? And they assume that that means that if somebody's on a chair in an office space, that they're working and productive 100% of the time. Well, that's not true either. Right? Whether Sally's getting up to make a cup of coffee and having a good old chat with Billy, and that's two people that have lost half an hour each of productive time. Well, is that a loss of productive time, or is it just actually they're building relationships and enhancing the culture of the business? You can't look at an employee and say they are productive 8 hours a day every day. It just doesn't work. So whether they're in the office environment being disrupted by that side of things, or whether they're at home and the postman comes or the dog barks or they get distracted by something in the house, you can't say that one is more productive than the other, in my opinion. And we have some people in our organization that find home working immensely beneficial.
Mm.
We do have the majority of people that despise home working and cannot get into a productive mindset, and that's fine. We understand that. But I think that when you're seeing a lot of people, like you say, with predictive grades, you're also seeing a lot of high-end, top-level, very experienced executives and senior leaders who have lost their jobs as well. They can't rely on, hey, I worked for big name X for 30 years and was paid an extraordinary amount of money. Therefore, I'm not going to move from that level. And there are people that are losing jobs and saying, well, I'm going to hold out and wait until I find a job of equal stature, of equal pay, and so on and so forth. I think a lot of those jobs are just going to disappear.
Definitely.
And so we have an incredible amount of people, and I'm very grateful that we do, but we have an incredible amount of people who are coming to myself or our HR team every single day looking for a job. And yes, we've hired a lot of people during this pandemic. Yes, it's been difficult for us like it has any other company, but we can't just say, you're a great fit, let's bring you on board, because there's so many variables that come into play now. And there's lots of good people. You're almost spoilt for choice now of who to hire. But I think you've got to hire for good cultural fit first. Again, getting that right person. And then things like the skills and the needs of the business, that can be trained. Give people time, budget, and give them responsibility and understanding to train up to the role that they need to be in, rather than trying to squeeze somebody into the role that you just hope might fit.
I mean, Velez has employees all over the globe, really. So the whole working from home thing and working online and virtually, it's not really anything new to Velez. As much as people are used to being in the office, maybe all together, you're still used to communicating with people everywhere. So I'm guessing it wasn't really hard for Velez to make that transition into working at home.
No, and you're right. We've got multiple offices, and they're all beautiful, and they're filled with wonderful people normally. But that switch to work from home was a quick switch. Everybody had great equipment. Everybody had equipment where they could take it from one location to another, and within reason have very little fallout from that.
Yeah.
When you think about, a sales team that spend a lot of their day on the phone, or when they are at their computers, they choose to sit at their desk on the computer, or there are the beanbags in the breakout room where you'd find salespeople sat on beanbags. So it's not like there was a set structure where people have to, you have to come in at this time, wear this item of clothing, and behave in this way. Flexibility was there from day one.
Yeah.
And so whether it's the beanbag in the office corner, or whether it's your sofa in the living room, as long as you can maintain a certain standard of what you're doing day to day, realistically, that can be anywhere in the world.
I like that. Obviously, working from home was probably a big decision for you to make, because obviously it wasn't essential at first. That's a decision you had to make as CEO. So is there any favourite part of being a CEO, or is it all difficult decisions like that?
Whilst there's nobody that I realistically look up to as being the sort of answer all to everything as to what a CEO should look like, I remember watching an interview Jeff Bezos from Amazon did. And he said, in reality, the job of a senior leader, not just CEOs, but senior leadership, is your job is to make a few high quality decisions every single day. That's all your job is in reality, a few high quality decisions. And I really enjoy having smart people in the company that are enabled to make their own decisions, enabled to make their own choices, have a lot of flexibility and freedom to run their teams, their departments, and themselves as they see fit. And as long as all of the little pieces around that, the objectives, the results, the KPIs, if you will, as long as they sort of, come together, my job is making a few key quality decisions every single day. And whether it's I'm at home and I call, like I did in December, I called every member of staff and just had a chat with them before Christmas to make sure that they were happy. Whether it's hearing about an employee's impending birth, whether of their child, whether it's hearing about a wedding, whether it's talking to somebody about their brother and how they've been doing in football, I try and I enjoy having that one-to-one connection with each individual person in the company as much as possible. So my favorite bits of being a CEO is having relationships with people in the organization, them knowing that wherever I am in the world, I'm pretty much always available. And a lot of people in the company will either receive emails from me at 2:00 in the morning, which I know can be disruptive, but hopefully nobody's checking emails at 2:00 in the morning. Hopefully wait until they come into work before they check those. Or knowing that, hey, if he just sends back an emoji of a thumbs up on an email, it's not because he's not taking the time to write to me, but he is approving what I'm talking about, or at least getting back to me. To, anytime during the day, quick messages and quick conversations with people. I enjoy having that connection with people.
Is it that kind of inspires you every day then? Because a lot of people will take inspiration from, famous people or whatever, but you seem to be quite connected with each person in your company, basically. So I'm guessing that's what motivates you to come to work every day.
Look, it's great if you aspire to be somebody, or if you take motivation from, an internet guru or an internet famous personality, and that's fine. Everyone has their own source of motivation, right? And I think that if you're someone, as I did many, many, many years ago, if you watch, the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world and some of these other famous online entrepreneurs, if that's what works for you, that's great. The reality of it is your motivation and your sense of drive has to come from within. Yeah, you can click rewatch on all those videos as much as you want, but your drive motivation's got to come from within. So what ultimately inspires me is that when I have a connection with someone in the organization, that feels good to me, and it feels good that we can have conversations about things, right?
Yeah.
And when that employee talks about, hey, you know what, actually when I joined the company, everyone was super welcoming, everyone was super nice. The fact that I got to sit down and talk to the CEO, which is not something that happens in many organizations, that makes me feel good selfishly. What inspires me is that I'm making my life, the quality of my life, much, much better by helping other people make their quality of life better.
That's
So
a nice thing to go by within work, especially because, like you said before, a lot of people don't get to speak to the CEO. It's usually a big boss sat in the office behind closed doors, so it's nice to have that person to just know you can speak to about anything, really.
absolutely. And, as much as I'll come in here and wear my Velez top and everything else, at the same time, you'll also see me in jeans, t-shirt, and occasionally running around with my 4-year-old son, right? So it's having the understanding that we live in a real world, and we're not in the 1960s. So a lot of the structure and a lot of the constraints aren't there anymore. You don't have a secretary blocking my doorway so nobody can come in without her permission. That doesn't exist anymore. It used to in the old days, but yeah, what inspires me is people in the organization, being happy with their jobs, finding fulfillment in their jobs. And we've got a lot of really, truly happy people in this company. And the happier they are, the happier I am. Simple
Definitely. Well, back to Velez, the actual company, I guess. What are your plans for 2021? I know it can be, obviously, we have no idea what's going to happen. We've just gone into another lockdown in England, but what's your overall plans for Velez in this year?
Look, I think we're going to continue down the route of remote working for some time. I don't think that's going to lift. I don't think it's going to lift as quickly as people believe it will. I think it should, by the way. I think we should be able to get back to the offices and be with people, because ultimately people thrive from being around other people.
It's mental health as well, isn't it? It's communicating and being with others. It helps, really.
It does, and I'm very sympathetic towards that. As somebody that has, dealt with mental health issues, and both myself, my family, and friends, it's always something that I'm very conscious of. And every time I'm on a phone call with somebody in the organization, it's always a video. The video always goes on, because that's the level of connection we can get, even in this limited capacity, right? I think you have to do video because it's just some form of connection. I think 2021 is going to be a very difficult year. I think it's going to be, for businesses, far more difficult than 2020 was. I think the ripple effect, effectively, of what happened in 2020 will really, really disrupt a lot of companies this year. I think, like any business, we have to be smart with what we're doing. We have to be cautious. But above and beyond everything else, and I've said this in emails to the team, and I've said this in live conversations, is we have to be positive. If you're in a race car and you're speeding around the track, you don't look at the wall because you're going to hit it, right?
Yeah.
You look at where you're going, and you look ahead. You look to where the corner is, you look to where the turning is. And that's what we have to do, not only as an organization, but as people within that organization. So I've said that we as a company will get through this. Not we might, not we can, but we will. And it will be difficult, and we will need to be with each other, if not physically, at least we should be with each other emotionally and as much as we can over video comms. But the reality of it is it's going to be a very tough year. And I think everybody needs to pull together, just as we are doing in our personal lives. We're pulling together and being with each other as much as we can. And so we must in a business environment. We've seen huge companies go bankrupt or collapse and let go of thousands of employees. We've also seen thousands of small businesses, whether it's a 1-person, 5-person, 20-person company, let go of all of their staff and had to close down. It's a very difficult time. So now is the time that we can pull together, work hard, help each other. We have to help each other, and be conscious that while somebody might be smiling on a video call today, they might really be struggling behind the scenes. And I've said on a couple of articles recently that I've written is that we're looking at things with the viewpoint of empathy over EBITDA. And EBITDA, for those who aren't familiar, is how you calculate sort of value coming from the business from a financial perspective, to put it in its most basic terms. But what that means is we're taking care of people above and beyond as a primary before we care about making money as a business.
I think that'll help towards that as well, won't it? Because if you look after your employees, then the work goes back in and the company will succeed. It all starts at the bottom, really, doesn't it?
It will, and you've got to make enough money to keep the lights on and keep people fed.
Definitely.
But at the same time, if Sally's having a rough day, support that person.
Definitely, yeah.
Don't penalize people, as I've seen recently. Some others have done, penalizing their staff for not being productive when they're at home. Maybe they're really struggling. Maybe have a conversation and try and help that person out. A business is a business at the end of the day, and a business can't function without its people.
Definitely, especially obviously at home, like you said, you have to give the benefit of the doubt for people that are working at home. Maybe they're feeling unmotivated or something. Is it like hobbies and interests that obviously keep people motivated? How do you make sure that everyone stays motivated at home and happy?
Yeah, it's tough. So identifying what motivates people, and that goes back to my conversation previously where I said I try to be involved with people as much as possible.
Yeah.
For the most part, I can pick a person out in the company and tell you what their interests are. So that helps.
Yeah.
Nobody here is a faceless person that I don't know anything about. I know a lot about a lot of people in the organization, which is great. But, we've got things like the book club that runs, right, for people who are interested in reading. And we discuss what books we've read and our thoughts on those. And I participate in that as well. We've got, the virtual calls. Yeah, everybody's done virtual calls, fine. But we do those collectively. We also segment them by teams as well. So certain teams have different calls at different periods, and then we communicate a lot. As a company, we communicate an awful lot to each other. And so within reason, everybody is talking to everybody and everybody has access to everybody. And so whether you've got a hobby like horse riding and somebody else knows about it, there'll be a conversation about horses. Whether somebody used to be into horse riding, for example, the same thing. Knowing that people are interested and what they're about is how you build that relationship with people. And I think that within reason, everybody gets along with everybody. And so it comes back to that picking the right people in the organization again.
Yeah, it's nice to be open like that and allow everyone to talk about whether it's, like you said, just horse riding or a hobby or something. It keeps everyone motivated, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to learn more about you. What are your hobbies and interests that keep you motivated? Because we're talking more about Velez, but we don't actually know Sean, which is the whole point of this.
So I have the CEO me, which is what most people get to see almost every single day. My wonderful other half will also tell you that she gets to see CEO Sean probably too much. Would like to see the home me more often. But the reality of it is, right, and we talk about this quite a lot, people discuss work-life balance. I always talk about it as work-life integration. Right?
Okay.
Because nothing's straightforward anymore, especially when you're working from home. If you're working right now from, let's say, your dining room, what differentiates you with the laptop open in the dining room working versus you in the dining room with your laptop open watching Netflix in the evening? It's very hard to separate those two.
Yeah.
So the work-life balance is very, very difficult. So when I talk about integration, that's because you will see a lot of my personal side come out on a day-to-day basis. Now, the fact that a lot of it looks like work is probably because most of my life revolves around work. So there is not a clear line there for me. But I like the way that works. You know, my 4-year-old son who comes in here from time to time, when he picks up his walkie-talkie at home and says, "Daddy, I'm making deals," that's because he's seen something that he's repeating, right? And so for me, my priorities are very, very clear. My number one priority in the whole wide world is to make sure that I'm fit and healthy. And that's above everything else, because as long as I'm fit and healthy, I can take care of my other priorities, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you're on the airplane, if we remember being on airplanes, that was a thing once upon a time when we used to get airplanes.
Memories long ago.
They always tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first and then help, others. Well, that's because you have to take care of yourself first. If you don't take care of yourself first, you cannot help others. So I run and I cycle and I swim. I do marathons, triathlons, cycle sportives. Most years, I'll do a dozen or more events each year. Triathlon is my favorite event to do, swim, bike, run. And so all the training around that keeps me fit and healthy, keeps my mind clear. And then it allows me to address my two other priorities. One is my home life and my family there. And then the other is my family in the workplace and making sure that the company is fit and healthy. So everything revolves around health, personal health, home and family health, and my family at Velez Health.
That's nice to have as your priorities, definitely. Has that been more difficult in lockdown and everything? Because obviously you can't really go out, and like you said, you like to compete in triathlons and things like that. I'm guessing you can't really do that right now. So is that more difficult, or are you managing it?
Every event that I signed up for in 2020 got postponed and then ultimately cancelled, which was unfortunate. We'd set about raising a large sum of money for Macmillan cancer research and cancer support in 2020. We raised thousands of pounds already without me even doing a single event, which was great. But with all those events being cancelled and postponed, I had to do what everyone else did and just try and adjust. So I have a gym and a fitness place in my garage that I work out from. So I have a bike turbo trainer. I've got my weights in there. I've got a big TV in there set up, and so you just adjust, and you do quite literally whatever it takes.
Which is the whole Velez kind of thing, isn't it? It's whatever it takes. That's your motto for Velez, I guess.
Yeah, it's always been a life motto, ultimately, I suppose, is that no matter what situation you're in, you can always find a solution to something. There's always something you can do. Might not fix it. It might not be the ultimate resolution, but there's always something you can do. And so, in the workplace, that is a motto of the company that we have plastered everywhere, which is, whatever it takes, we do whatever it takes. I always joke and saying that should probably be with a little asterisk, and then underneath, as long as it's legal and safe. Because there are people and companies that can take that motto a little bit too far.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is, going back to priorities, when it comes to my own health, I'll do whatever it takes. So I go running in the rain. I'll go running in the snow. Don't let that put me off. When it comes to my family and looking after my family, I do whatever it takes there. And sometimes that means pulling back on other responsibilities. I might need to pull back from work a little bit to take care of a family issue, and vice versa. And in the company setting, for our customers, for our partners, for our employees, and for each other, we'll do whatever it takes.
With that being the Velez motto as well, why should everyone choose Velez then? Obviously you have to make sure all of your employees do whatever it takes. So why should people choose Velez?
From what perspective?
I'm guessing just from clients, why should everyone work with Velez or, come to Velez for their needs? What is kind of different from everyone else? What do you offer to your clients that makes it the best it can be?
Sure. And I think contrary to what a lot of people will tell you, we're not for everyone. And we don't work with everyone. We cannot work with everyone. And one of the things we are very good at is, telling prospective customers when this is not going to be a good fit. We do things a certain way. We do things in a way that makes sense. We do things that are measurable. And sometimes a customer just wants everything for nothing. And there are people out there that will do that. We have a great service offering, great product offering, and we do things that make sense to the customer, but most importantly, make sense to us as well. And in a client relationship, it should not be all one-sided. You cannot have a service for free or for very little pay, but expect golden results. And so we are certainly not the cheapest in what we offer. We're certainly not the most expensive either, but we do things a certain way. And if you come to an IT services provider and expect everything for $10 a month, that's not for us. But if you want things done right and you want things that are trackable and measurable and on time, then we are the IT services company for that prospective customer. But knowing your customer is a lot like knowing your staff. It's not always going to be a good fit. There's always an interview process, a recruiting process, an onboarding process. And we don't work with everybody that comes to us.
It's nice to be honest with that as well and basically say we're not for everyone, because you could just easily, I guess, take people's money and not be honest like that. And it's nice that Velez are honest with their customers and their clients, and it really brings out that whatever it takes motto, doesn't it? It's obviously you're all honest with each other, you're an open company, everyone communicates. So it's nice that even though you would love all the customers in the world, you are honest with everyone, and that really portrays through you and everyone at Velez, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. Do what you say you're going to do. Delight your customers. Make your employees really, really happy with the work that they're doing. And what can go wrong?
Definitely. Well, that's all I have to ask you really today. Thanks for telling us about Velez and yourself. I'm sure everyone will learn a lot, so thank you.
Right, thank you.